So I wanted to do this video today about 8 shocks that freshers face when they start university. So I'm sure a lot of you watching this will be going to university in September, October. So I thought it'd be a good, a nice video to do to basically give you some 8 shocks that you probably will face before you start university, because these are kind of 8 shocks that I faced before I started university. So I think, yeah, I thought this would be a good idea to do this video here to go through these 8 shocks. So the first 6 of these shocks are going to be about, studies and your studying, and the last 2 are going to be about social life. So the first shock is lectures with 200 to 300 people. So in school, in college, you would have been in class with, maybe 20 to 30 people. You're going to be learning new information with 200 to 300 people sat next to you in your lectures. So that is a bit of a shock. So it's a different way of learning. So in your class, you'll be sat there with all your classmates. It's kind of like it kind of feels it's a lot different to when you're sat in a lecture with 200 and 300 people, because it can feel quite you know what's the word that I'm looking for? Impersonal. It doesn't feel, when you're in a class of 20 to 30 people, you're kind of all in it together, and you've got time to process the information that you're learning, and you can ask the teacher questions. So it's a much more slower pace, and I'm going to come on to that actually with my next point. But lectures with 200 to 300 people, it can be a bit of a shock, because a lot of you guys, it'll be the first time you've ever been in a lecture where you're learning new things with so many other people. So that can be a big shock for some people as well. So just bear that in mind, that you're going to experience a different way of learning that you've learned your information before. So that would be my first shock. And yeah, this second shock that I kind of alluded to, lectures are very fast paced. So you're going to be learning a lot of information in that lecture. So generally lectures are between 50 minutes and an hour, depending on which university you go to. Yeah, they are very fast paced. You're learning a lot of information. So, I mean, I can only speak for maths because I did maths at university. The lecturers normally just copy out their notes. So what you'll be given before, in your very first lecture for your class, is you'll be given, a set of lecture notes, covering all the material that you're going to learn in the course you're doing with that lecturer. And generally speaking, a lot of lecturers just copy out those notes onto the whiteboard or the blackboard, depending again on whether your lecturer is using a whiteboard or blackboard. Or sometimes you may have like a PowerPoint presentation that you may be just going through in your lectures. So they can be quite boring. They can be very hard to keep engaged when you're going through all this material, all these definitions, all these things to learn, and all these, bullet points on a PowerPoint, at a very fast pace as well. It's very different to when you're in a classroom of 20 to 30 people, and you're not, it's very interactive. You're all in it together. Maybe your teacher keeps you all engaged by asking you all questions. So it's very different, because no one in the lecture is keeping you engaged. Now, you may get a lecturer who, makes you. I remember one of my classes at university where the lecturer would all make us like play an online game where we all signed in on our phones and we'd all give our answers, like multiple choice questions. You may get something like that, but generally speaking, it's not very interactive, and the lectures are very fast paced, so they can be quite boring. So do prepare or do bear in mind that a lot of your lectures are not going to be very fun experiences, but obviously they're crucial because you've got to be there, because you've got to learn your new material to pass your degree. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Don't expect really fun interactive lectures, because they're not. Generally speaking, they're not. So my third shock is that many lecturers are what teachers. Many lecturers you get are not very good teachers. So a lot of people think, and perhaps I thought as well, that you're going to university, oh my god, these professors that are going to teach you, they're the best in the world, and they're world experts, and oh my god, they're going to be the best teachers you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, they're world experts. Yep, they are, professors. They've got their PhD. They research their area of expertise, and they're experts in their field, and they may be absolute geniuses in what they study and what they work on. But that doesn't mean that they're very good teachers. So I think a lot of people will be very appreciative of their GCSE and A-level teachers when you see some of the caliber of university teachers that you get. Again, you'll be taught by a lot of very, very smart people, but that doesn't mean that they're very good teachers. Now, you will get good teachers, trust me. When I was at university, you do get very, very good teachers out of those bunch of lecturers, but not all of them are very good. And you know, you will be discussing with your friends, oh God, you know, he's really bad. He's not a very bad teacher at all. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So it's a very common conversation people have at university about their lecturers. Don't expect them all to be really good. I mean, the analogy that I kind of like to use recently is so if you guys follow football, you'll know, you know, Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard, you know, very, very good football players, but they haven't turned out to be very good, you know, managers, right? And it's the same kind of thing with, you know, for example, you know, university teaching. You know, you may be taught by, so if you're doing like a maths degree, for example, you may be taught by a world leading expert in, you know, differential equations. Doesn't mean that they're very good at teaching you differential equations. So just because someone is good at something doesn't mean that they can teach it very well to other people. So that's why a lot of your lecturers are not very good, and they're not qualified teachers as well. So they don't, you know, they don't go through like this training course where you know, they become a qualified teacher and they get this certificate. No, that they do their PhD and they go into research, and then they become a postdoc, and then they, you know, then if they do well, they may become a lecturer. You know, there's not really a strenuous process in which they select, you know, quote teachers. So just be aware of that. Now, my fourth shock is this one. So this is not like school where I mean, just talking from a personal perspective, when I was at school, I was, you know, quite quiet. I was quite nervous to ask for help. And to be honest with you, you know, I did pretty well without having to ask for help because you know, I was very motivated, I was very dedicated. Um, a lot of the time I didn't feel like I needed to ask for help. Even times when I felt like, oh, I don't get something, I always tried to figure it out myself because I was always nervous and a bit embarrassed of asking for help. Now at university, if you're a bit of a nervous person, a bit of a shy person like I was, um, you're going to need to ask for help. I'm sorry to say, but you're going to need to ask for help because university is so fast paced. You learn so much information. You cover some really difficult things. If you don't ask for help for something you don't understand, you're going to be left behind. I'm sorry to say it, but you know, if you don't, you know, ask for help or drop an email to your lecturer, or you know, ask your friends, or you know, get online help or get a tutor or whatever it may be, you're going to fall behind. At the first stage where you feel, oh, I don't get this, I'm really struggling, you have to seek help. It could be your, you know, your personal tutor, because at university you get a personal tutor. It could be the lecturer for the course. So let's say you're doing a course in, I don't know, group theory, right? And you don't understand, you know, one of the things, you know, one of the lectures you had, right? And you're really struggling and you're falling behind and you couldn't do the homework. You need to ask help. So your tutor, your lecturer, drop your lecturer an email, go to the lecturer at the end of the session, at the end of the lecture, or get, you know, support online, a tutor. You need to ask for help because if you don't, you will fall behind. The lectures are too fast paced. You learn so much new information in every single lecture you do. You know, you're going to fall behind. One missed lecture, right? You know, you fall behind. You really do. So even if you know, missing one or two lectures, you've got a lot of work to catch up on. So do be aware of that. You know, you do need to ask help because if you don't, you will fall behind. So it's not like school where you've got kind of time to, you know, figure things out yourself. And you know, class, you've got a lot of revision time at the end. You know, things go very fast at university, so don't fall behind. My fifth shock is that, yeah, so this is one that I probably didn't realize as well. Your lecturers write your exam paper. So let's say I don't know, let's say you're doing, I don't know, let's just say you're doing economics as your degree, right? And maybe you've got a course in microeconomics, right? And your lecturer for microeconomics obviously teaches you microeconomics in your lectures, right? That lecturer writes your exam paper in microeconomics, right? So lecturers, so it's not like, you know, GCSE and A level where you've got this, you know, secret exam board who secretly come up with these exam papers. Your lecturers write your exam paper. So the person you see teaching you at the front when you're sat with your 300 friends in your big lecture theatre, that person, generally speaking, writes your exam papers. Now, not that may not always be true. There may be like some other lecturers who are also contributing to the exam questions as well. But generally speaking, especially in second and third year, when you're taking, you know, more specialized courses, you've got options. You can choose which courses and which modules you want to choose. You know, and you're doing obviously smaller lectures because, you know, everyone's got options and you're going to be in smaller classes because less people are choosing those courses. You know, generally speaking, in those cases, your lecturers are writing your exam papers. So if you're, you know, if you're a third year math student and you're doing something like quantum mechanics or, you know, fluid mechanics, you know, really specialized topics, your lecturers are going to be experts in those topics. So your university probably won't have too many experts in those topics. So your lecturer will be writing your exam paper. So this kind of point at the bottom here, do your homework. That's really important because your lecturers also write your homework as well. And you will probably get some very kind lecturers in the revision period just before your exams who kind of hint about what's going to come up in your exam because, again, you know, they're writing your exam. So do your homework because that's kind of really important because the style of questions in your homework, if they're written by your lecturer, will be quite similar to the style of questions in your exams. And also, you know, listen to your lecturer very, very carefully if they give you any hints about what may come up, especially in revision period, because, you know, you do get some kind lecturers who will kind of give you a hint and say, oh, you know, I really recommend you revise this topic because, you know, this is a very, very important topic. If you hear any kind of phrase like that or sentence like that, do bear that in mind and do focus your revision on that because, again, you know, these are questions that they write. Now, they are checked, obviously, by like a general exam board at your university, like your university's exam board, but the actual writing of the questions comes from your lecturer, your teacher. So that's really key. Now, the sixth shock is that no one is checking up on you if you don't attend your lectures. So, you know, in school where, you know, you've probably got like an attendance register online or something like that. There's no attendance register for lecturers. Lecturers. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's changed recently in like the last couple of years. Maybe some universities have different processes. Maybe some universities do, but generally speaking, universities don't check up on you if you don't attend things. You may have some like compulsory classes, which may be part of like a compulsory course, which contributes towards your final mark, where you kind of have to attend. And if you don't attend, you lose marks. So I remember that kind of thing in my first year, but generally speaking, no one's checking up on you. Now, if you don't attend your lectures, as I was kind of alluding to before, you're going to fall behind massively. You are really going to fall behind, and you are really going to. And if you do fall behind, you're going to struggle. It's going to be a lot of hard work to catch up again. So, attending your lectures and attending your tutorials. So you also get tutorials as well, or supervisions, depending on what university you go to. Some universities call it tutorials. Some call it supervisions, and that's when you're in a small, very small class. Could be, you know, 10 people, or could be, you know, even like 3 or 4 or 5 people. When you're in a small class, probably going through your homework. So you do get that. So don't just think, oh, it's all lectures. You know, it's all sitting in a lecture room with 300 people. That's going to be so that those lectures are where you learn your new information. But your tutorials is kind of like where you go through your homework. You have like a tutor who hands you back your homework, who marks your homework, and you kind of just go through the questions and maybe just you have that kind of more personal support compared with the big lectures with loads of people. So definitely attend those tutorials where you're in, you know, a small classroom with a small amount of people. Normally, it's, you know, for each course you do, each module that you do, normally you get one of those a week. And that's kind of your opportunity, you know, to go through your homework, ask, you know, the tutor in your tutorial or your supervision, depending on how your university calls it, you know, asking your tutor any questions or your supervisor any questions. That's a really good, you know, thing to attend. But again, no one's checking up on you. So if you're not attending, you know, no one's going to be checking up on you. But again, as I was trying to suggest, if you're not attending lectures and if you're not attending your tutorials, your supervisions, you're going to fall behind. And if you do fall behind massively, they will check up on that. So they're not going to check up if you turn up to your lectures, and they're not going to check up if you turn up to your tutorials, but they will check up if you're not handing in a lot of homework. So generally speaking, universities do check if you hand in homework. And if you're not handing in homework, and let's say you've got like a mock exam and you've not done very well in that, or if you're in your first year and you're doing your first year final exam. So remember, first year doesn't count at university, so first year doesn't contribute towards your final degree mark. Now, if you've done really bad in first year, like really, really bad, you could be kicked out. So, you know, they don't check up if you're going to turn up to your classes. But if you don't get very bad, if you get really bad exam results, you may get kicked out. So, you know, it's really important you do turn up to as many classes as you can, but just be aware no one's checking up on you. So, you know, if you do want to Skype a few classes, you can. It just means you've got extra work to do because you're going to have to catch up. If you don't, and you don't do well in your first year exams, you're getting kicked out. So there you go. Now the seventh shock. Now this is more about social life rather than academic life. Is that Freshers Week is very draining. It's very overwhelming. So a lot of people say, you know, it's kind of like this cliche: Freshers Week, best week of your life. Oh my God, it's going to be so amazing. And to be honest with you guys, I mean, it wasn't the best week of my life. And I think if you ask most, you know, people who've done their first year or most people who've graduated, you know, was Freshers Week the best week of your life? No, I think a lot of people will say no. You know, it can be, you know, a fun experience for people, but it can also be a very draining experience. You know, all these new people from all over the world. I was going to say all over the country, but all over the world. You know, you've got people from all over the world coming to study at your university. It's a very draining experience. So yeah, it can be fun going out, you know, 5 times a week. Yeah, all fun and all that. But it's very draining as well, you know, all these new people and all these events going on. It's very, very draining. So don't, you know, get your hopes high and think, oh my God, Freshers Week, this is going to be the best week of my life. I can't wait. Because generally speaking, it's not. You know, it can be fun. It can be, you know, it's an what I'll call it an experience. It's an experience, right? But I don't think it'll be the best week of your life. I mean, it may be, but I think it'll be a very draining experience, especially at the end of that week. Very draining. And when you've got your first lectures, you know, on that Monday morning, yeah, it will kind of hit you like a rock. So do be prepared. Do bear that in mind. Oh, and my last shock as well. Yeah, it will be a shock attending 9 a.m. lectures after a night of lots of drinking. Obviously, university, you know, you're adults now, so you can go out and do what you want. And you know, attending a 9 a.m. lecture when you're absolutely hungover to the core, it is a bit of a shock. Now, do I recommend you attending 9 a.m. lectures if you are really, really hungover? Maybe not in first year. Maybe not in first year because you know, well, I say that, but I think to be honest with you, it's part of the university experience, isn't it? So I think, you know, if you've had a big night out and you've got a 9 a.m. try to do one of them just for a laugh, but you know, you're probably not gonna make much progress if you're really hungover and you're feeling sick. You know, after you've been drinking to like 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, and then a couple of hours later you've got your 9 a.m. Class in, I don't know, like linear algebra, whatever it may be. I don't think you're going to be feeling that good. So if you are, you know, in first year, you can kind of get away with it because again, you know, your first year at university doesn't count towards your final degree. Now, I'm not saying, you know, forget your first year and, you know, mess up your first year because it doesn't count. If you don't do well in first year, as I said before, you could get kicked out of university if you do really badly. But first year is the foundation for second and third year. So if you don't know your first year stuff at university, you're not going to do very well in your second and third year, or you're going to have more work to do in your second and third year to catch up. Because if you don't know your first year material, you can't do your second year material, and that counts. So don't neglect first year, but you know, you can have a couple of, you know, you can skive a couple of lectures here and there, is what I'm trying to say, especially early morning ones if you've had a night out. And I'm not advocating, you know, drinking, I'm not advocating heavy partying, but it's what students do. So you are inclined to, you know, do a couple of nights of drinking a week, then you know, just be aware 9 a.m. lectures won't feel very good for you. So yeah, that was my 8 shocks on for freshers, 8 shocks that freshers, but I think freshers face when they start university. Do drop a comment on the comment section below if there's any questions you have, or if there's anything or any other potential shocks that you may feel like you may encounter when you start university. But hopefully today's video was useful. Just go through those 8 shocks. So yeah, please do like the video, please subscribe, and thanks very much for watching.